Crawford, as great as he is, and we both agree that he's great, this is effectively a welterweight moving up to 168.
In a sport defined by its unforgiving danger and life-changing rewards, there's something eternally captivating about the underdog who dares to chase the impossible.
I've been fighting people bigger than me all my life. I always been undersized, and I always came out on top.
And this September, the boxing world will witness a showdown soaked in legacy, ambition, and risk, as two pound-for-pound greats collide for the undisputed super middleweight championship of the world. Terence Crawford, the undefeated maestro with a 41-0 record, steps up 2 full weight classes to challenge Saul Canelo Álvarez, a man who has ruled the 168-pound division with unshakable dominance.
Also, good shot from Álvarez, and he's found that it was the left hand, it was the left.
Canelo's now 10-0 at super middleweight, but largely untouchable at this weight class. Why do you believe that you're the man to knock him off?
I'm the best, that's why.
Crawford is already one of just 3 male fighters in the 4-belt era to conquer 2 divisions as an undisputed champion.
But Crawford has created history.
But should he succeed here, should he overcome a mountain no one before has dared climb, he would stand alone in history as the first to achieve undisputed supremacy in 3 separate weight classes.
Everything's happened for a reason, and there's a reason why I'm here. In September, I'm gonna show the world what greatness looks like.
Blocking that path, however, is a man who has never been beaten at super middleweight. Canelo Álvarez, a global icon, a national hero, and a 4-division world champion, has spent years fortifying a legacy that few can match. And while recent defenses may have lacked the edge that once made him ferocious, this challenge, this unique audacious threat, could reignite the fire that originally built his legend. It's legacy versus legacy, greatness versus history, a calculated king facing an unthinkable challenge. And on fight night, the stakes could not be higher. Welcome to the Canelo Álvarez versus Terence Crawford Fight Countdown.
Oh, and there it is! A third time! Will it be a charm?
For years, Saul Canelo Álvarez has sat at the highest porch of the prize-fighting industry. A global superstar capable of commanding the sport's biggest purses.
Blocking those shots, believing it. Oh, and 1-2, and down goes Yilbrook!
While he may no longer occupy the top pound-for-pound slots, there's no question that he still remains boxing's most marketable and sought-after champion.
Canelo!
His name alone guarantees sold-out arenas, blockbuster pay-per-views, and the kind of financial rewards that no other fighter currently can reach.
Case when you have a conventional fighter, and there is Canelo!
Even before settling a super middleweight, he had already enjoyed a lavishing career as a 3-weight world champion.
He is now the Ring Magazine World Champion.
It was an appetite to achieve undisputed, however, that propelled his status to another level.
Canelo rallying his troops here at AT&T Stadium.
Within a span of 12 months, he enjoyed a series of destructive performances at 168 pounds, where he devoured all 4 of the major world titles, stopping 2 of his 3 reigning champions in the process.
Saul Álvarez becomes the undisputed super middleweight champion.
But compared to that version of Canelo, arguably the most dominant force at the time, there now appears to be a significantly reduced desire to hunt down the best. His legacy is already secured, and at this stage of his career, he's far more calculated about the risks he takes.
I like challenge. That's made me feel alive.
The last time he rolled the dice, after riding high on the wave of his undisputed run, was against Dmitry Bivol, stretching the limits of weight jumping and failing in his attempts to dethrone the then WBA light heavyweight champion. That setback forced a recalibration of his ambitions, and rather than continue to pursue higher weight classes, he refocused on defending his super middleweight throne. He began by closing his trilogy with an aging Gennady Golovkin, a fight that, while part of a storied rivalry, was not something the fans were clamoring for given Golovkin's obvious decline. A homecoming fight then in his native Mexico followed against John Ryder, where despite his best efforts to secure a knockout for his fans, he would settle for a decision win.
The tempo of Canelo.
Whoa, that right hand was blocked, but it still knocked Ryder off.
Then, as part of a 3-fight deal with a new promotional partner, the Mexican enjoyed a series of fights with opponents that, whilst respectable on paper, were not equipped with the tools to mount a serious enough threat. First, he faced Jermell Charlo, who, despite his impressive achievements down at light middleweight, struggled to rise to the occasion, resulting in a monotonous decision win. Next came the spirited and courageous Jaime Munguia, another former light middleweight champion that at best offered a more lively challenge, but ultimately falling short on the cards also. And finally, against the fairly green but energetic Edgar Berlanga, Canelo secured yet another decision victory, closing out 2024 as still the clear leader of the super middleweight division.
We're gonna show respect? Absolutely. There's a man in Canelo, a legend who recognizes another young beast.
At 34 years of age and 67 fights into an incredible career, Canelo is fully justified in a more judicious approach to selecting his opponents. And after a routine win over Williams School in May, Canelo has retrieved the IBF title that he was stripped of just last year, restoring his status as the undisputed champion of the division.
Canelo!
This now brings forth a very unique challenger.
Here it is, the official face-off for the undisputed super middleweight championship of the world.
Although he may not ease the criticisms surrounding Canelo's recent matchmaking, perhaps even intensifying them, his undeniable skill and legacy as one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters of the past decade will force a narrative that even the most vocal of skeptics will struggle to ignore.
It's not how we want to end this fight ever.
Unlike some of the recent light middleweights who have attempted the weight jumps against Canelo, Terence Crawford's endeavour is far more audacious, given the fact that only up until recently he was still very much a welterweight.
Combinations go. Beautiful right hand.
And the champ gets to him.
More astonishing is that his career in fact began 12 pounds further south of welterweight, where he spent 25 fights becoming the WBO and Ring Magazine lightweight champion of the world.
The new, there it is, Terence Crawford. Wow.
Lightweight champion of the world.
He then spent the next 7 fights campaigning at super lightweight, where he scooped up all of the major world titles to not only become the division's first ever 4-belt undisputed champion, but also the first fighter in the entire sport to achieve the feat since Bernard Hopkins in 2004.
The undisputed champion of the world.
At this point, Crawford had established himself as a pound-for-pound contender that was ready to make the leap to welterweight to enjoy what could be the best years of his career. The 147 division has long been one of the most thriving weight classes in the sport, rich in iconic names and lucrative rivalries. And with it preparing the departure of its legends in Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, a void had been formed for the next generation of welterweights to claim the coveted throne.
And Spence puts him back down.
At the forefront was Errol Spence Jr., who after winning his first world title in May of 2017, was being primed for superstardom by a powerful promoter with a strong hold over the division.
Right hook, uppercut, sends him back. Another left hand.
Crawford, not long after Spence's crowning moment, quickly picked up his own world title at his new division. And thus began a fascinating rivalry where over the next 5 years both men annihilated all of their nearest challengers en route to a mega high-profile undisputed showdown.
12 rounds to decide who, in all probability, is the outstanding pound-for-pound fighter in the world today. I think Crawford's having a look. Oh my goodness!
The aftermath of Crawford's victory was seismic. Finally, the widespread recognition and praise that had eluded him for so long poured in, as the boxing world and casual fans alike realised just how extraordinary his abilities were.
But Crawford has created history.
Though he had already been a prominent name in the sport, the way he handled Spence made him an overnight superstar. And his newfound status opened doors to more opportunities as he was immediately afforded a title shot in his next weight up against the WBA 154-pound titleist Israel Madrimov, in a chance for Crawford to become a 4-weight world champion. Madrimov himself was an immensely skilled and talented proposition. As a dangerous, undefeated champion, he was arguably a tougher matchup than Spence, and the risk was compounded further by his relative anonymity.
He's just getting stoicism and counter punches like that. Nice left hand down the middle from Crawford.
And sure enough, he gave the man from Omaha perhaps the best tactical challenge he had ever faced.
Nice overhand right there from Madrimov.
A constant bounce to his step and unorthodox movement made the Uzbek a difficult target to time and calculate. But a healthy dose of body shots and selective counters allowed the 36-year-old American to contain the energetic Madrimov to secure a competitive 12-round decision.
From Omaha, Nebraska, USA, he is the new.
In terms of styles and skills on display, this win was as good as any in Crawford's long, decorated career. But being at the twilight end of his boxing journey and the need to profit from his newfound status, merely being a world-class opponent is not enough to entice him anymore. Crawford now seeks the ultimate prize, one that brings with it both the money and the glory.
I wanted to go from 147 to 168 just because I want to challenge myself. Yeah, and that's the joy of it.
To leapfrog almost 3 weight divisions and challenge an all-time great like Canelo Álvarez is a terrifying proposition, one that only a select few in history have dared to attempt.
This is a legacy fight. This is a generational fight. Will be talked about for years.
The closest example is the great Sugar Ray Leonard, a fighter of comparable size to Crawford when he won the WBC world title in what was then a newly created super middleweight division.
What a comeback by Ray Leonard, absolutely incredible.
For Crawford, the former welterweight icon is the exact type of level he believes he should aspire towards.
I feel I got the speed over Canelo. I got the reach over him. You know, he might got the size, the power. I got the better skills.
Few would argue against the idea that his skill set is elite enough to translate across any era. And with this enormous risk, he will unequivocally be cementing his place amongst the sport's all-time greats.
And another combination! Beautiful work by Crawford! Terence Crawford, his name keeps coming up, and I know he's a lot smaller than you. Is that a fight that you would ever consider under any circumstance?
You know, I always say if the fight make sense, why not?
The reasons for Canelo accepting this fight are more layered. The privileged position he's deservedly earned will still invite the scrutiny of taking on a naturally smaller opponent.
I mean, because of the way he beat Spence and how easy, and that's why I guess to your
yeah,
point.
but if I beat him, what are you gonna say? That's too small.
Right.
That's too small.
But even in a perceived mismatch, a businessman such as him can find good reason in selecting a pound-for-pound elite whose underdog intrigue surrounding him will generate huge interest.
Everybody's like, man, boy, you crazy. Yeah.
Whatever their motivations, the fight is now made. No one will be tuning away.
Hollow's down for that big left hand, and there's a right, and he goes down again.
The sheer contrast in size makes it a perceived mismatch, yet with that very imbalance creates the intrigue. Questions remain as to whether Canelo's physicality will overwhelm the challenger or Crawford's genius to find a way and defy the odds.
The knockdown scored. Lightning strike.
Should Canelo win, it'll be another great name on his already legendary resume. But if Crawford wins, it will go down as one of the greatest upsets the sport has ever seen.
You cannot afford to do that against the caliber opponent of Terence Crawford.
Two incredibly gifted athletes, each with something to prove. The ingredients are there for history to be made.